I want to talk about Florian, both in and out of possession. Let's move on and chat about that, because I'm just like, let's send that to Gravenberch. There's McAllister, just for the purposes of argument. There's the right back. I want to come on to talk about both Frimpong and Bradley in that. And here's Salah and how it can be a little bit different from last season. And then here's Florian, with maybe a little bit more of a wandering brief. I think his numbers so far for presses, for turnovers, are exceptional, and they're reminiscent of Szoboszlai last season, let's be clear. But we haven't bought him just for that. We've bought him because we see him as someone who can massively impact games, especially when we're dealing with a low block. But if we almost take this the way we've got this set up here, I feel as though in a number of ways, almost the most important player is whoever it is who's playing here. In that liberates Salah to not have a ton of work still, but maybe to come a little narrower into this space, out of possession, but also at times in possession, off the basis of the fact that neither Bradley nor Frimpong have the passing range and capability, and if we're honest about it, genius of Trent Alexander-Arnold. But what they've both got is a better engine. They're both quicker, even I'd say quicker than Trent at his quickest playing for Liverpool. They're both quicker, and they're both more able to do this jump that we talk about, to go back to the Bournemouth thing. You know, if you're doing this, to say, no, actually, we're all going to rearrange here. I'm going into this space there. Canate can come in there. And now he can jump there. He can even jump there if need be, if you wanted to take a chance. But it's off the basis of the fact, and he can then get back in if we decide we need to drop. It doesn't take him out the game. But I think that a lot of that is about Wirtz, because it means that you don't have to have the Szoboszlai on this side, Salah there aspect that you had last season. So it doesn't mean that Szoboszlai's got to come in here to help the Salah workload quite as much. You can have Wirtz. I think that's Liverpool's tactical gamble with the right-back area, and it's odd to say it, but with Florian Wirtz. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think in the final third, sort of like, especially if you're looking at sort of penalty area down, I think Jeremy Frimpong, Conor Bradley will probably be more dangerous than Trent at times in these areas. Where Trent was absolutely devastating is in here. Yeah. I mean, he could hurt you from back here, as we saw, even with the ball against Manchester City, which is from about here. But in these zones, you know, think of Tottenham away last year with the cross for Luis Diaz's header. Conor Bradley and Frimpong are great, and they can cross the ball, but they just, who has that kind of, dare I say, almost Steven Gerrard, David Beckham-esque crossing range and passing range. But what you can do in these areas is make sure that you've got players like Florian Wirtz in particular, Alexis McAllister in there to make up a bit of that creative balance, albeit in a different way and in different areas, and then have the running power and the pace, and maybe some more of the directness in the final third from Frimpong and Bradley.
But with Wirtz then, the question still is, because the nature of the 3 games so far, and the opponents and the context. So Newcastle, the way the whole game goes, it's a really odd game. The way Arsenal addressed the question of what to do with Liverpool, which was, as we said, almost have Zubimendi and Rice holding hands at times. I think Wirtz has a good second half against Arsenal before he goes off with cramp. But it becomes, what are we going to see from him? Are we seeing him as an upgrade on a hard run an 8 in Szoboszlai? Are we seeing him as, no, you're going to see 10? And then what does that mean to an extent for Salah, for Gakpo? What does that mean for these players? And that's still, I think, we'll have more of a sense of that, I think, after the next bank of 7 games, international break. I think we'll have more of an answer to that than we do now of what we've seen, but we can try and anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to look at last season and say, how would you explain to an alien what Arne Slot's shape and possession was generally last season? I think a lot of the time you would see 2 centre-backs split.
Yep.
I think you would almost see a line of 4 with the full-backs, Gravenberch and McAllister. Obviously, there are some games, I mean, Arsenal this season being one where Gravenberch starts drifting in a little bit more, and that gives different requirements for his play. But generally, it's that. And it was like a 2-4, 1-3. And what you would quite often see is Salah being the most vertical, Gakpo or Diaz, whoever your left winger is, being quite high as well. Now, there are some occasions later the season goes, it looks a bit more Brighton-y, where on our Stats Bomb Pass networks, you quite often see Szoboszlai and Diaz, similar vertical lines, if you will. Maybe some other times you might classify it like this, but that's kind of your shape. So if you think of a 9, and let's call it the 10, I think the big question is last season, Slot adored Dominic Szoboszlai in that role, and the only thing he said is probably like a bit more output, more early season than later in the season, where Szoboszlai goes on a good run, sort of Tottenham at home, City away games like this. So the question is, have they brought Florian Wirtz in to say, well, you've got to do exactly what Dominic Szoboszlai did and add the output, and therefore you're one of 3? Because certainly in the first few games, first half Arsenal, first half Newcastle, I'd say most of the game, Bournemouth. It's very compact. Hugo's dropping in. Florian and McAllister are very, very close, both on the eye test when you watch it.
Yeah.
But when you look at
I thought too close against Arsenal. I thought they got in each other's way a little bit against Arsenal.
Well, yeah, and that's where I do think there might be a tactical switch with Florian that they might be able to look at that would help. If I just move the opposition team up, let's assume they're playing 4-3-3 for a second. Move the centre backs up, and we'll put a holding midfield player in it. So what we've seen so far, let's put Hugo up top. So this is Florian Wirtz. We've seen Adams from Bournemouth. We've seen Tonali from Newcastle. To a lesser extent Zubimendi, but they were doing nearest man Arsenal. So sometimes it could be Declan Rice, other times it could be Zubimendi, depending on who's in and around him. But he's been man-to-man marked. Now the problem is, what I've seen in Florian is that when Liverpool have been building the play, Florian doesn't stand still. One of the best things is Mo Salah stands still, because what happens with opposition defences is as Liverpool pass the ball backwards, they move up, they move back, the unit moves side to side. Salah just stays still and goes, I will be in space any second by doing literally nothing. And with experience, and he's also got the freedom and everything, he hasn't quite got the same responsibilities in it. The problem with Florian Wirtz is when he's been getting man-marked, he does this and starts like, and I think it's because I think at times against Crystal Palace and I think at times against Bournemouth, he's been in between passing lanes.
And not being picked
going, I'm on. And these are going, do you know what Bournemouth are like when you lose the ball? We don't need to do that. So one of the issues is I think, a bit like I've said before, John Barnes with England, he maybe just starts looking for the ball and he's then easy to mark. Now, if you think, forget Florian Wirtz for a minute, what you don't want a number 10 doing, which causes you a nightmare, is when they start drifting off and go and stand there for a bit. And this player goes, I was supposed to mark him. So the centre-back goes, I'll have him. So then as the play's building, this guy starts wandering and then Florian Wirtz just drifts in and this centre-back goes, I'd quite like you to take him back now. And you want to create that little bit of indecision. And the other thing you want is as Hugo drops in, you want him running in. Because again, if that's the player tasked with the man mark, you're looking for communication problems to manipulate the line.
You're just looking for that split second of someone knocking off. At the speed this game goes, it's just, you're just looking for that all the time.
Find the dope. And if there isn't a dope, we'll just keep doing it for as long as there's just an honest mistake. So the issue we've got at the moment, he's very much ended up being part of the three, and then he's in here. And I just think we've got, especially when you look at the fixtures coming, we've got so many good technical players. I would be saying, I do not need you in here. We will get you the ball, but I need you to be one of this four rather than the third of three, I think.
I hope you're enjoying this free show at the moment. Loads of excellent, exciting stuff on the Anfield app. If you want to be part of the whole thing, you can download the Anfield app and go from there. Or you can subscribe via the YouTube membership as well for video-only content and other bits and pieces. We love doing these shows. We love that you watch them. So come, be part of the journey with us.